is the Chris Abraham Show.
Hey there, this is the Chris Abraham Show, Season 6, Episode 31. My name's Chris Abraham. Is it 31 or 30? Yeah, it's 31. And it's 30? I don't know. 1, 2, 3, 30. 31. Is that right? 31? I believe so. 31. 31, is that right? I don't know. This episode is in direct response to the Megyn Kelly Show I just listened to. It actually started at noon till 2 o'clock, but it's 16:42 now on Friday the 15th, and it's Megyn Kelly's show, last live episode before she goes on 2-week holiday. And she spent a lot of time talking to two world-class lawyers. And since she's a lawyer, or was a lawyer, or is a lawyer, not on the bar maybe, but spent a decade as a lawyer, they were talking about the potentiality, if that is a word, of Trump going to jail and being prohibited from becoming president and all that other stuff. And really interesting insights. But let me just tell you something. After the Roe v. Wade decision, extreme leftists were very aggressive towards the Supreme Court conservatives, to the point where there was an attempt on the life of one, and they needed to up the guarding and defense strategy of the rest of the conservative judges. Now, one of the scariest places to be a judge is Latin America. Routinely, organized crime and various and sundry lawless crime groups like MS-13, etc., who are doing business in and around Mexico and Honduras and Guatemala and Salvador, etc., it's completely routine as a judge to be gunned down. Getting assassinated as a judge is pretty much a normal risk of being a judge in a lot of Latin American countries, especially Mexico over the last 20 years. So in an environment where people believe that Trump has been held up on trumped charges merely as a political tool to prevent him from winning a second term, and that the RICO statutes and that the January 6 indictments, and that the fact that all of these have been placed in liberal cities such as Atlanta and Washington, D.C., and the fact that these decisions are being made autonomously by either a judge or it is being done by a select jury, like I said, in very democratic cities of places that really never vote Republican ever. Certainly not a jury of Donald Trump's peers, whether it be in 80, 90% Democrat New York City, or 90, 100% Washington, D.C., or 70 or 80% Atlanta. Not Georgia proper, but Atlanta. There is a real belief that he is being railroaded and that these are being trumped up as a way of removing his feet from underneath him. And it doesn't matter if that's true or not. It just matters what people think. And if half of America believes that 9/11 was an inside job, and if half of America believes that January 6th was an inside job fomented by the 5 feds, and if they believe that there is a hypocrisy, that as long as you're a Democrat, you can burn down federal courthouses, federal buildings, you can loot, you can rob, you can riot, mostly peacefully, you can protest, you can low-key be perceived as threatening Israel and threatening Jews. You can basically do anything. You have complete carte blanche and an absolute assumption of First Amendment freedom of speech protection, but that isn't a universal thing. That is, if you are a protected species, I mean a protected class, and you are considered a minority and someone who needs to be protected from the white devil, you in fact have more free speech. You have both active and reactive armor insofar that you're allowed to punch, but it is punching down if someone punches back at you. This kind of thing, if taken to the extreme end, could unintentionally result in every single, I guess, anybody who is chosen to be on the jury, if there's a jury trial, or if anybody who has openly and shamelessly and fearlessly shared to various and sundry law conferences, that sometimes you just need to make the decisions that are on the right side of history, or sometimes juries are stupid and you need to make the right decision on their behalf, and I know the difference, and my decisions are right, and I'm making right decisions in support of the right side of history. And if you go ahead and if you brag about the fact that you were voted in as judge in order to bring Trump down, or that you as a mayor or governor or prosecutor were voted into office or appointed because of your Trump derangement syndrome, and that you will single-handedly be willing to fall on your sword and risk your integrity and risk your so-and-so blind justice, and will possibly put the reputation of what should be, very literally the blind justice, the wisdom of Solomon, the ability to know, legally speaking, right from wrong, not good versus evil, but what is or isn't legal, and to not have animus towards a particular person. And what is the saying? You find out who you want in jail, and I'll find out what they did wrong. Right? If there's a real perception amongst the extreme right, and even any Democrat, if there's a belief that this is just, all right, we want Trump in jail, we want Trump to not be able to be in the running, and we definitely want to make sure that Trump is never president. Now, anybody within the sound of my voice who also thinks that Trump will very literally result in all the Nazi, all the Stalin, all the authoritarianism, all the totalitarianism, all the anti-democracy, all the anti-Semitism, all the anti-black, all the white supremacy, then you should be willing to risk your reputation, the reputation of your field, the reputation of your profession, the reputation of your office, nay, your life. You should be willing to sacrifice your life in order to frag, if you will, this monster who on the first day said that he will be an authoritarian, even though technically he just said, I'm going to just write 2 executive orders, drill baby drill and close the border, but has been spoken as if he said, I'm an authoritarian on day 1. I say that. If someone tells you something, believe them, when in fact it was just a cheeky, off-headed, charming remark by a sociopath. But I'm really worried that these men and women, these lawyers, will potentially, and maybe this is the kind of, temptation, maybe this is the equivalent of poking the bear long enough. I mean, everybody thought that Trumpies and Trumpers and extreme MAGAs, I think they expected melee, fisticuffs, assault with assault weapons. They expected aggressive, violent, domestic terrorist-esque acts, and all they get is a bunch of feds LARPing in khakis and in polo shirts with black buffs, or what is it called? What's the term? Not baklava, balaclavas over their head. Totally fit guys, white fit guys, sound like they're right out of San Diego SEAL training, more than a bunch of fat old vets who are living in the past. So young, rigorous, vigorous, what is it called? There's a term for the young brigades in Germany. So will Trumpy MAGA Republicans, will they kill judges and public prosecutors? Will they kill people that are called George Soros public prosecutors or AGs or whatever? Will they do the equivalent of killing the judges who could take down their beloved capo, their beloved godfather, Donald Trump? Is this a real situation, or is this performative? Is this a 1984-esque, I don't know, what is it called? World Wrestling Federation wrestle between the heel, Donald Trump, and the face, Joe Biden? Is this a game where Donald Trump is being paid millions and millions of dollars in order to be the Emmanuel Goldberg in this, is it InfoSec? Not InfoSec, it's like the term for the 1984 good guys? Or is this real, like, left-wing and right-wing war? You know, is Bibi Netanyahu in on a globalist joke? Is he the scapegoat, the martyr for a larger plan that he's in on, where, you know, after this is all over, there'll be $1 billion given to him and he'll live in Malta or someplace less rocky and more sexy, like, I don't know, like the beautiful sexy cities in I guess he couldn't live in Israel. I guess he would have to have one of those amazing Dubai or Abu Dhabi amazing like islands or someplace like that, or maybe he can retire to Florida. Maybe he can retire to Florida. But if this is all performative, if this is all a grand joke to nudge us into distraction away from, you know, like I feel like in many cases, your general American was never really affected by, you know, 9/11. In general, a bunch of people from Connecticut, New Jersey, Staten Island, and the boroughs were killed, first responders, et cetera, right? And you hear about all these Israelis who have died, and you hear about all these Palestinians who have died, but like, I don't have any firsthand knowledge. I mean, I still watch Wag the Dog every year, and I still watch Idiocracy every year, and I still watch that movie, the original from the 50s one with Frank Sinatra, called the, it's right there in the tip of my tongue, Manchurian Candidate, every year, to remind myself that that the only way I would believe that there is Islamic terror, or that there is Chinese terror, or that there is Muslim terror, or that there is Hamas terror, or that there is Kashmirian terror, or that there is North Korean terror, or that there is domestic terror by Christo-fascist, white devil, white supremacists. Like I said, the only way I'm ever going to believe you, all y'all, is if my local cafes, restaurants, schools, buildings, like if I literally start seeing shit blowing up in Washington, if I literally see the Starbucks at Penrose be blowed up by some sort of device, like I need at least the commitment by the IRA that happened during the Troubles. I expect at least like London bridges falling down. I don't see any of it. It's all, you know, my joke is that the reason why nobody actually terrorizes us is because we provide the weapons to all the sides, and we provide the ammo to all the sides, and you don't bite the hand that feeds you. But if there's literally listen, the people that educated Barack Obama in Chicago, the Weather Underground terrorists, they blew shit up. They knew what was going on. There's, I'm not seeing any open environmentalism, terrorism, aside from skinny little people gluing themselves to the road, or throwing paint at works of art, or spraying colorful powder vis-a-vis that amazing holiday that they have in India, the color celebration or whatever. I want to see people fucking shit up in order to prove to me that this isn't just a simulacrum, that this isn't just basically Wag the Dog, where people are in front of green screens, or they're using whatever Engine 5, whatever that rendering program that makes video games, something engine number 5, that's pretty realistic. I mean, 9/10 of all the fighter heroes, fighter aircraft heroes, 100% of them from Ukraine were the result of video games, where they were just screen captures of video games, and none of it actually happened. But, that takes a while for people to figure out. I mean, you just can't assume what you see. And let's assume that commercial technologies, as you know, from Skunkworks and from DARPA and stuff, we don't get to see the sweet stuff. Commercial electronics are yesterday's news with regards to not only the Five Eyes or any other, the Mossad or any other kind of spooks and spies. They have technology that's 30 years ahead of ours. I know that because I worked at Treasury, and there was a guy from NRO who had gone private sector, and he told me in, what year was it? 1999, 1998, when I became I wasn't a govie, I was a private contractor at the, what is it called? Treasury Department, CIO, Chief Information Office. And he told me that 30 years before he worked at 1999, 70, 80, 90, 80, 90, in the 70s or 80s, he was seeing satellite photos and spy plane photos that could figure out the license plate on a car from space, right? That's something that, and I remember in the 80s, in 1985 or 86, the year I was in AP Physics, which was a stupid place for me to be, because I'm an AFANT. But when I was in AP Physics, my uncle Bob Cash, who worked at TRW, he gave me a flyer, literally gave me a flyer that he probably had printed for a weapons conference. They have them all over the world. And it advertised the technology of TRW in Los Angeles, California. They had the technology that they had applied technology, just not theoretical, which was surface-to-air pulse weapons. Surface-to-air pulse weapons. I don't know, I forget the exact technology. It might have been lasers, it might have been energy, but I know that it had a pulse weapon, by which case when you fire a laser at something or fire a sustained energy beam at something, all it does is either burn a hole through it or superheat it. Now, if you're trying to superheat something so that technology in it goes wrong, if you want to superheat a missile so that it loses its GPS or its targeting or its ability to direct itself, that's fine. But if you want to blow it up, you need to make sure that your pulse weapon goes brrrr, like a machine gun, whether it's energy or laser, and laser and energy are both energy. But you need to stutter it so that when it hits the target is destabilized and broken apart. So in 1986, America had surface-to-air pulse lasers that were active and being utilized, right? It's funny because I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist, but it seems pretty obvious to me that at least 80% of all the missiles I see drop from the sky and destroying buildings in Gaza Strip are collapse at 9.8 meters per second, very much like a controlled demolition. And that there's one out there where the controlled demolition starts before the missile or the rocket actually hits the building. So one might say that all these buildings are being demolished by demolition, and the missiles are either kabuki theater, or there might even be another technology that's destroying the building, and the missiles are disguises. And the missiles might not even have any TNT in them, right? They just might be dummies, and the actual demolition happens through, demolition squads and that sort of thing. So how can you believe anything that you see when there's literally military technologies and military communications and military strategies and military eyes in the sky? I mean, can you even imagine what 30 years from now looks like? I mean, you have to assume that quantum computers have existed for 25 years, because they say that quantum computing in a real way, superposition, get through 2048 key cryptography in milliseconds. You have to admit that exists. You have to admit that if you learn about playing dumb strategies like they did during World War II with regards to key cracking, you just have to admit that 99% of all mistakes that intelligence makes are made in order to fool people into believing that the technology isn't as advanced. You literally need cybersecurity people to know that most hackers don't realize that a 2048 bit key is it's like butter, and that every single private key form of cryptography hasn't been anything but a clear window to your chat, to your PGP. That's not GP. That's not PGP. Is pretty good privacy. That's the commercial version of private key encryption, which is PKI. And those things are supposedly even based on the public parallel computer systems that exist, let's say, in a rendering farm. Even a 2048 key encrypted, 2048K encrypted email or document should take thousands of years to decrypt. But assuming that the technology is 30 years ahead, we obviously have it. We just have to play dumb. And we obviously have everything. We have everything. We obviously have, we obviously got the ChatGPT 4 in some form at MIT Media Lab 30 years ago, right? When I was playing with that crazy command line therapist, what's her name? How do you feel about that? How do you feel about that? When I was playing with her, there was literally a large language system going on. I mean, like they had this entire thing. Like there's an amazing book by Umberto Eco that Rob Mon, Mark Harrison, and who else? Guy who owned NervousNet. Anyway, we're obsessed by Foucault's pendulum. And one of the subplots of Foucault's pendulum, if I recall correctly, was that there would be some kind, and maybe this isn't actually Foucault's pendulum, but there was this idea that if you feed all of literature into a giant database, and you feed a language, large language learning system, if you feed the black box and the AI system can start, so it's called machine learning. If you can treat machine learning as if it were a proto-sentient being, and then you feed it all of human accomplishment and all of human knowledge, and in the black box, which strangely today people cannot backward engineer what happens in a large language machine or in a mechanical what is the term? I just said it a second ago. If you can't backward engineer. You can't backward engineer a machine learning environment. You just have to hope and steer it based on its output. So it's an I/O. You input all the wisdom and learnings of the world, and maybe all the images based on, AI and all the videos and all the movies and all the poems and all the law briefs and every bit of human history, all the politics, all the news, all the tweets, all the Facebooks, put it into there. And then you can figure out, you can start correcting it using controls that you have on the machine learning device, and then start to say, well, black people are not apes, fucking Google. Those are black people. Well, I'm sorry, you feed me lots of white people and Asian people, and I don't see a lot of black people, so I make a mistake. And so you make those, hopefully you find all those mistakes and you try to normalize it. You try to kind of address false positives. You try to address false negatives, and you start to build the language, large language system in such a way that it starts to make sense to you, right? And with the goal, I guess, of passing a Turing test, but passing a Turing test against a genius interested party. I honestly don't know if 9/10 of the people I work with are non-player characters or actually people who live in the world, but it doesn't matter to me, because when I give them a request, throw it over the transom, and in between 1 hour and 24 hours, I get something awesome back. I mean, I am super pro AI. I'm super pro robotics. I can't wait. In fact, it's way too long. If I couldn't invent, como dit Elon Musk, I would have, because I was promised cyberpunk. I'm not seeing anybody who's awesomely cyberpunk. I've been seeing more often people who have that amazing device installed in their brain that fixes their deafness. I mean, that's awesome. Cochlear implant, is that right? Sounds like cochlear implant. I see people with glasses. My best friend Mark is developing this thing called ARIA, ARIA, out of Sydney, Australia. And he is going to be using GPS, DIS. He's going to be using sonar, maybe LiDAR. He's going to be using, he tells me, even eyebrow controls and all kinds of amazing things to allow blind people to see. The understanding that it's completely possible, and that certain high-performing blind people have been doing it in the past by making clicking noises and by making sticky noises and by making popping noises and acting very much like your garden variety bat. They can visualize using their hypervisualization. They can use the echolocation of their sounds, boops, beeps, boops, and sticks and clickers in order to visualize in real time the world around them. And as they develop their internal and so I guess his device is going to be for people like me, maybe? People who don't have hyperphantasia, people who kind of want to live in a world where they don't have this ability to be a bat. Some people have the ability to be a bat. One guy has been proven that he can bicycle on his pedal cycle by doing click clocks and so forth, because he has a complete vision of his entire neighborhood, and all he needs is to refresh and update the information. So I think also like exploring technology, like kind of cell phone based sonar, like apparently the spooks and just like that Batman movie where Batman is able to make every single cell phone and smartphone in a building wake up and kind of take a sonar LiDAR photo picture and then be able to figure out based on third-party technology, they're able to visualize an entire building full of baddies. That technology exists. And I think Bose developed that technology. But it's like a grid network. It's like a grid network, a mesh network. Is it grid or mesh? But in the same way that you can use the Wi-Fi or the wireless or the Bluetooth of an infinity of connected devices to create a de facto undesigned internet, Wi-Fi network through the emergent connections of devices. In the same way that, let me explain it this way, in the same exact way that that the Apple or the Samsung like tag works, right? The tag, every single tag does not have its own SIM card, I don't believe. But the fact that you can track your errant or lost luggage or bicycle is not the result of being connected to a satellite or to a cell tower, but it's the direct result of being connected, being close enough to other tags so as to be part of a mesh network or grid network. It's an emergent network that happens very similar to what happened during that Wall Street thing where everybody was like sharing the message of the one person through sort of echo across the entire group. I could say, everybody shit their pants, and then everybody repeats, shit your pants, shit your pants, shit your pants, shit your pants. And so if that tag is in a rural area and there are no other tags, then you might not have any intelligence as to where your Louis Vuitton rolling luggage is. The moment you enter into larger densities of higher densities of potential other devices is the moment that you start getting a return. And the more and more tags that are around, connected to more and more iPhones and iPads, the more granular the de facto GIS GPS locator will be. So God, I don't really remember where I was. Well, let's just put a period there and start anew. What else is going on in my head? So I'm really afraid for these judges, right? I'm really afraid if there really is a legit people who aren't just LARPers and who just don't like telling themselves, I'm badass, there's going to be a civil war. Or, for example, everybody has been dunking on Alex Jones, right? But he is the perfect foil. He is perfect foil for authority because he's obviously a spook. There's no other way to say it, right? He has never been brought down. His network has never got offline, right? He is like Twitter, right? There's just no way, no matter how many people shit on him, he's more useful alive than dead, right? Twitter is way more useful alive than dead. You are fooling yourself if you quit Twitter and then, cut off your nose to spite your face because you feel like if everybody decides to leave Twitter and all the advertisers leave Twitter, Twitter's never going to go down. Twitter is the best tool ever by every spycraft, every spy organization, every intelligence organization, every business intelligence organization, every small business, every medium business. I mean, imagine how much money you would have to spend without Twitter existing or Facebook. And since Facebook doesn't make it easy at all, unless you spend money, but Twitter, allows people to find you and follow you and be part of you, there's no way. I mean, if anything, China and Kuwait and, if anything, Saudi Arabia, any place that could potentially have a revolution is going to want to at least keep their connection onto Twitter. If anybody's stupid enough to go ahead and DM or talk or discuss, or if anybody sees something, that's another thing. Nobody would ever let Twitter die, because Twitter is literally how many government organizations figure out where there's, like, they figure out things like how many people are sick, where they're sick. Like, this is like the best intelligence thing. People have no ability to control what they say. There's generally no walls to Twitter. You don't need to be within the walls, and you can do amazing things. You can find out where there's an outbreak of typhus. You can find out where there's an outbreak of COVID. You can find out almost immediately, if not directly from the people fomenting antisocial behavior, but by people who are craving content, who cruise, C-R-U-I-S-E, who hang out in areas, people who fancy themselves citizen journalists, people who are cruising Twitter 24/7 as a way of promoting themselves, or like this is an amazing emergent white blood cell emergent system. This is the equivalent, and you literally cannot let Twitter die, because Twitter is very literally the best spider web ever produced in the human world, right? So a spider makes a spider web and stays in the middle because it needs to feel the vibration. It needs to feel the vibration of the spider web. Let's say an elaborate spider web. The reason why it's radial is because all the vibrations from all the webbing needs to vibrate to a central point, similar to like a panopticon. I wonder if a panopticon prison, et cetera, was developed as a result of someone seeing a beautiful spider web, that goes out in a radius, and then it stays in the middle with its legs on the silks, and it waits. And if something gets caught in the spider web, those silks vibrate and tell the spider that something has been caught in the spider web. Now, in a world, especially in a developing world where there's no value added to having the panopticon of CCTV associated with places like, Geneva, Zurich, Tokyo, London, Hong Kong, Paris, etc., New York, the ever-present ubiquitous CCTV that is able to use pattern recognition and noise recognition and an AI to do the same kind of thing in IRL. You actually have the most perfect spider web in the entire world in Twitter. You find out, oh my God, the person next to me has a boil that just gushed out with pus. I mean, any place that you have the equivalent of a density of Twitter users, and let's compare that to a density of Apple tags that, connect together by virtue of proximity, you don't actually have to follow the tweets of the terrorist or the antisocial person or the robber or the kingpin or the whatever. You just have to make sure that there's enough people who will see something aberrant and will be like, oh my God, this is awesome. And they'll take a picture and tweet it, or they'll tweet it, or they'll use hashtags, or they'll do whatever. I mean, if you don't believe me, just look at the trope now, which is the moment a cop starts harassing a black person, is when all the cameras come up and people record spontaneously. Like I said, the density of Apple iTags start recording, and in this case, in a Schrodinger's cat kind of way, they are, by looking at something in an obvious way, they're influencing it, and they're hoping to say, I see you, cop. You need to desist from what you're doing, or you're going to get in a lot of trouble, because there's a density of people photographing exactly what's happening here. You either have to comply with law and also turn on your body cam and also cease and desist, because you are under the eyeballs, right? The great thing about Twitter is Twitter is completely discreet. Like nobody has their sound on that goes bleep bleep or tweet tweet or anything like that. You can be quietly next to someone, like has happened a million times, and snitch on them, and they're right next to you, and they'll never know. And if there's a density of people who are like, oh my God, I'm in that airplane too, right? Then you start to, based on a cascade of attention, not only do you supply, I guarantee you, it's a main line to Langley, to Fort Meade. It's a direct line to MI5, MI6. It's a direct line to DOJ. It's a direct line to any number of private security companies. It's like everybody's capturing this. And if you think that you'll ever be able to kill X, aka Twitter, without providing something that's like the reason why, the 100% reason why one needed to turn Twitter around and make it completely friendly to the right wing is because now all the way circle around in terms of these poor prosecutors, these poor jury pool, and these poor judges that are probably going to get Latin American murdered, right? If you don't, you need to build trust back with the people who might participate in that kind of stuff. And so if you make it impossible for Christo-fascist, white supremacist, white devil, Trump, MAGA, extremist Republicans, if you scare them out of this world and make them all go into a non-federated world, such as Mastodon or what's the name of that thing that those servers, or someone has their own Signal or Telegram or any kind of other thing, like even people secreting notes. Like if you drive people under in a way, you need to have better data. And I guarantee you, obviously, Elon Musk is extremely establishment, just like Alex Jones is. And he's out there to draw people into trust and get them to trust him and come back on board. And this is not a scary place anymore and so forth. So he's wooing them into a false sense of security that they're back on a friendly brand again. Probably had a talk with people saying, oh my God, Twitter used to be so much better when everybody was on there so that we could totally follow everybody's crazy things. Like right now, all we ever see is the chatterings of blue hairs. You really got to make this right. But why do I think that Alex Jones and is establishment? Why do I think that Glenn Beck is as well? It's because ever since January 6th, they have been saying, January 6th is a trap. Hold your fire. Hold your fire. Do not be violent. This is something they'd want you to do. This is a trap. Do not rise to the bait. Do not behave. Keep your powder dry. All that other stuff. So either they are on the side of goodness or they're trying to manage the difference between perceived violent peoples and actual violent peoples. And it's not good for anybody, at all. It's not good for anybody at all to foment actual civil war or actual race wars or actual violent culture wars, unless, of course, the establishment and the government knows that it's going to be able to handle it, or the outcome of what happens is going to be something that the establishment will have plausible deniability for, that they'll be able to get the outcome they want without being blamed for it, and that it turns out to save the right people and to fuck the right people, and to kill the right people and to jail the right people. Now, the other way of explaining it is that the left is a lot more courageous in terms of street violence, and they're more scared, and they feel they're in a world where they need to fight or die. There's more of an existential threat. And white folk are like, well, I still enjoy 90% of the advantages that I have as white folk, and it's not really worth blowing up my entire world because at the end of the day, only 3%, right? Isn't that why they have 3% in all the morale patches? That only 3% of people become soldiers, only 3% of people become warriors, only 3% of people go to war, only 3% of people become cops, only 3% of people become first responders, only 3% of people are willing to get punched in the face and then be able to punch back and not just talk, but act. And then the rest are all like, cowardly LARPers who are just like, damn it. So why go ahead and catalyze, as they say, if that 3% starts something, it'll definitely catalyze into much bigger behavior. But that, let's say, 50% of people who consider themselves Trumpies, that 50%, if only 3% of a total 100%, then that's like 6% of the 50%, right? If those people are able to start blowing shit up and there isn't any real response, then the rest will be encouraged to join in, like with BLM, right? Like when there's no accountability, more and more people join knowing that nothing's going to happen. So that's why Trump and all of his merry pranksters from January 6th need to be, short of being hung in the gallows in the center square, they need to be thrown in jail with enough force to either actually make Alex Jones and Glenn Beck say, do not be baited by the left. This is a trap. Or, more likely, they need to be reinforced. They need to be reinforced that the aproportional response done by the Department of Justice against people who show any pro-Trump support is so extreme that it's not worth it. And so those beloved people, Alex Jones and Tim Pool and Glenn Beck and Salty Cracker and whomever, say, stand down, it's not worth it, it's a trap, getting baited in, it's a white flag, not white flag, it's a false flag, it's all feds anyway, don't fall for it, it's feds all the way down, and all those other kinds of things, reinforming people that either what happened was feds all the way down and didn't actually occur, or if they believe it occurred, it was a true manifestation by the excited unhappiness based on the stealing, quote unquote, of the election by leftist establishment forces against Trump, that behaving badly is really not worth blowing up your entire life. You thought not getting a vaccine was bad for your career. Imagine what it's like being one of the January 6th defendants. So anyway, I'm done with my walk. I think that this will have been my longest podcast ever. I don't even know if I'll be able to feed all of this content into the word translator, so that I can get proper show notes, but I'm sure I'll be able to get something. So this is season 6, episode 31. 31. I don't know any languages. Love you guys. Chris Abraham Show. I'm Chris Abraham, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for listening to The Chris Abraham Show. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. Until next time.